The fluorescent lights in the conference room seemed to hum with a predatory buzz, a sound I'd never noticed in the 14 years I'd called this building my second home. They flickered over the polished mahogany of the long table, reflecting in the untouched glasses of water placed before my colleagues. No one was drinking. No one was even looking at me. Their eyes were fixed on their notepads, on the cityscape framed by the floor-to-ceiling window, on anything but the public execution taking place at the head of the table. "Jennifer, we're downsizing. And you're first to go." The words, spoken by my new department head, Samantha Kerr, hung in the air like poison. It wasn't just the words themselves, but the delivery. A slight, almost imperceptible grin played on her lips, a glint of cruel satisfaction in her perfectly made-up eyes. It was a look that made my stomach clench and turn to ice. "Effective immediately," she added, a final, brutal twist of the knife. I sat there for a moment, the world narrowing to the space between me and Samantha. The hum of the lights grew louder, a roaring in my ears that drowned out the frantic beating of my own heart. I tried to process it. 14 years of dedicated service to Westbrook Dynamics, gone. My career, my stability, my very identity, erased with a casual, dismissive sentence. My colleagues, men and women I had mentored, collaborated with, and shared countless lunches with, remained statuesque, their silence a deafening confirmation of my sudden exile. After 14 years, this was how it ended. My name is Jennifer Calloway. I'm 46 years old, and until that precise, soul-crushing moment, I was the senior account manager at Westbrook Dynamics in Charlotte, North Carolina. It wasn't just a job, it was the foundation upon which I had rebuilt my life. After a nasty divorce a decade and a half ago, I had walked into Westbrook with a bruised heart, 2 young children to support, and a desperate need for stability. The company became my lifeline. My old boss, Robert Harrison, a man with a booming laugh and a heart to match, had seen something in me. "I can teach someone the technical aspects of this job," he'd told me in my interview, "but I can't teach genuine care for people. You have that quality, Jennifer. And that's what makes great account managers." I took his words to heart. For the past 14 years, I had poured my soul into this company. I wasn't the flashiest employee. I didn't play the games of office politics or spend my time kissing up to management. My work spoke for itself. I was reliable, consistent, and deeply respected by the people who mattered most, our clients. I didn't just manage accounts, I built relationships. These weren't shallow, transactional connections. They were partnerships forged over years of trust, of going the extra mile, of remembering a client's child was graduating or that their father was ill. I knew their businesses inside and out, but I also knew them. And in our industry, that was everything. That was the bedrock of Westbrook Dynamics' success in the Charlotte market. Then, 6 months ago, Robert retired, and Samantha Kerr arrived. From the moment she walked in, the atmosphere shifted. She was all sharp angles and sharper ambition, a whirlwind of buzzwords and aggressive, empty confidence. She spoke of revolutionizing our approach, optimizing synergies, and disrupting the status quo. To me, it sounded like she'd swallowed a corporate thesaurus and was regurgitating it at random. She confused being loud with being effective, convinced that shaking things up was automatically an improvement, regardless of the consequences. Her first week was a blur of unnecessary meetings where she did all the talking, and a wave of new, convoluted tracking systems that nobody asked for and everyone hated. She constantly questioned methods that had been working perfectly for years, her tone dripping with the condescension of someone who believed age was a liability and experience was a sign of stagnation. During one of her endless staff meetings, she made an announcement that sent a chill down my spine. "I think we need to inject some fresh energy into this department," she declared, her eyes sweeping over the team before landing, for a fraction of a second too long, on me. "Some of these account relationships have gotten a little too comfortable. A little too personal. We need to maintain professional distance." I remember thinking at the time how catastrophically wrong she was. Our clients weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, they were partners. That personal connection, the one she so casually dismissed, was the very glue that held our most lucrative contracts together. But I held my tongue. I was a professional, and she was my superior. I would do my job and trust that the results would continue to speak for themselves. Her scrutiny intensified. She started micromanaging my every move, demanding to be CC'd on every email and insisting on joining my client calls. The calls became excruciating. Where I would normally chat with a client like Patricia Vance from Emerald Marketing about her daughter's soccer tournament before diving into business, Samantha would cut in, all sterile professionalism and jarringly aggressive sales tactics. One afternoon, after a particularly awkward three-way call, Patricia sent me a private email. "Jennifer, what's going on over there?" That was unpleasant. "Your new boss seems to think we're adversaries to be conquered, not partners. In all our years, I've never felt so pressured. Is this the new direction for Westbrook Dynamics? Because if it is, we need to have some serious conversations about our future together." I knew this was a warning shot, a clear sign that Samantha's approach was doing real damage. I tried to handle it delicately. I forwarded the email to Samantha, hoping it would serve as a gentle course correction, a piece of constructive feedback from a major client. I framed it as an opportunity for us to strategize on how to better align with our clients' expectations. That was my mistake. Not in the act itself, but in underestimating the depth of Samantha's insecurity and ego. She called me into her office, her face a mask of cold fury. The email was displayed on her large monitor. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice low and menacing. "It's feedback from Patricia Vance," I said, keeping my own voice level. "I thought it was important for you to see so we could." "So you could undermine me?" she snapped. "You think you can go behind my back, colluding with your little friends to make me look bad?" I was stunned. "Samantha, that's not what happened. Patricia is a key client. Her concerns are valid. I was trying to be transparent so we could address the issue." "The only issue here, Jennifer, is you," she spat. "You're a relic. Your relationships are a liability. You're too entrenched, too old school. This company needs to move forward, and you are holding it back." I left her office that day with a pit of dread in my stomach. She wasn't just misguided, she was threatened. She saw my success, my deep-rooted connections with our clients, not as an asset to the company, but as a personal threat to her authority. I realized then that she was looking for a reason to get rid of me. And with the news of company-wide downsizing trickling down from corporate, I knew she had just been handed the perfect excuse. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in that cold conference room, the words "you're first to go" echoing in the silence. The look on Samantha's face was one of pure triumph. She had won. What she didn't realize, what she couldn't possibly comprehend in her transactional, zero-sum view of the world, was that she had just made the biggest mistake of her professional career. She had just triggered a chain reaction that would reshape the entire company. The rest of that day was a surreal haze. I packed the contents of my desk into a single, sad cardboard box. 14 years of my life, photos of my kids growing up, little mementos from client gifts, awards for sales performance, reduced to a pile of objects. My colleagues, the same ones who had been silent in the meeting, stopped by one when Samantha wasn't looking. Their whispers were a mixture of disbelief and anger. "This is insane," my teammate David whispered, his face pale. "You're the backbone of this department. How can they think this is a good idea?" I just smiled a weary, tight-lipped smile and thanked him for his support. I had learned a long time ago that burning bridges rarely led to anywhere productive. I walked out of the Westbrook Dynamics building for the last time, the weight of the box in my arms feeling less like the end of a career and more like the end of an era. I spent that Monday evening at home, sitting on my back porch with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the Charlotte skyline in brilliant shades of orange and pink. For the first time in 6 long months, the knot of tension in my shoulders began to loosen. The constant stress of walking on eggshells around Samantha was gone, replaced by an odd, disquieting combination of raw uncertainty and profound liberation. My phone had been buzzing all afternoon with messages from former colleagues expressing their outrage, but I had turned it off around dinner time. I needed space. I needed to think. By Tuesday morning, the space I had craved was shattered. My phone was exploding with notifications. I had 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and 67 emails. My first, panicked thought was that something had happened to one of my children. My heart hammered against my ribs as I quickly scrolled through the messages, my thumb shaking. But they weren't personal emergencies. They were business calls. From my former clients. The first voicemail was from Thomas Reed at Grandstone Manufacturing, one of our largest accounts. His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "Jennifer, I just heard what happened. This is absolutely unacceptable. I've been trying to reach someone at Westbrook since yesterday afternoon, and nobody seems to know anything about our upcoming project deadlines. I need to speak with you immediately about our contract." The second message was from Patricia Vance at Emerald Marketing. She sounded even more upset. "Jennifer, they can't just eliminate you without consulting their major clients. We have 3 active projects with deadlines next month, and you're the only person who understands the specifications. I've left 4 messages for your replacement, and apparently, they haven't assigned one yet. This is a disaster." As I continued listening to the voicemails and reading the emails, a pattern emerged. Every single one of my major clients had called. Not just to express sympathy for my situation, but to voice serious concerns about the continuity of their projects. David Chen from Solar Tech Industries was particularly direct. "Jennifer, I don't know what kind of game Westbrook is playing, but if they think they can just remove the one person who actually understands our business and expect us to start over with someone new, they're out of their minds. Call me back. We need to talk." Michael Torres from Nexus Development echoed the sentiment. These weren't just business relationships, they were human connections built on years of trust, reliability, and genuine concern for each other's success. My clients didn't just work with Westbrook Dynamics, they worked with Jennifer Calloway. And my sudden removal felt like a betrayal of their business relationship. But Samantha saw all of this as unprofessional. During one particularly uncomfortable meeting 3 weeks ago, she had pulled me aside and said, "Jennifer, I need you to understand that our clients are paying for a service, not a friendship. I think you've gotten a little too emotionally invested in these relationships." I had bitten my tongue then, but I should have known that was her way of building a case against me. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Samantha was criticizing my emotional investment, our department consistently outperformed every other division in the company. Our client retention rate was 94%. Our average contract value had increased by 30% over the past 3 years, and our customer satisfaction scores were consistently the highest in the industry. But none of that seemed to matter to someone who was more interested in asserting her authority than understanding what actually made the business successful. The final nail in my coffin came 2 weeks before that fateful Monday meeting. Patricia Vance from Emerald Marketing had called me directly, as she always did, to discuss some concerns about a project timeline. It was a simple conversation, the kind I had handled hundreds of times before. But this time, Samantha insisted on joining the call. "Patricia, this is Samantha Kerr, Jennifer's supervisor," she had interrupted within the first 5 minutes. "I wanted to personally ensure that all of your concerns are being addressed at the appropriate management level." The tone she used was condescending, both to Patricia and to me. I watched helplessly as the conversation grew increasingly tense, with Patricia clearly uncomfortable with Samantha's aggressive approach to what should have been a collaborative discussion. After we hung up, Patricia sent me that private email that I'll never forget. "Jennifer, I've been working with you for 8 years, and I've never had to deal with someone speaking to me like I'm a problem to be solved rather than a partner to be supported. Is this the new direction for Westbrook Dynamics? Because if it is, we need to have some serious conversations about our future together." That's when I realized that no matter how professionally I handled the situation, no matter how much I tried to work within her new system, she had already decided that I was the problem. The downsizing announcement, when it finally came, felt almost like a relief. Not because I wanted to leave, I loved my job and was proud of what I had built here, but because it meant the uncertainty was finally over. Samantha had been looking for a reason to get rid of me, and she had finally found her excuse. I made myself a cup of coffee and started returning calls. The conversations that followed were both heartwarming and professionally explosive. Every client expressed genuine personal concern for my well-being, but more importantly, they all shared the same sentiment. They had been working with Jennifer Calloway, not just Westbrook Dynamics, and my sudden removal felt like a betrayal of their business relationship. "Jennifer," Patricia said when I called her back, "I want you to understand something. When we signed our contract with Westbrook 3 years ago, it was because of you. Yes, your company had competitive pricing, but what sealed the deal was knowing that we'd have someone who actually cared about our success. If you're not there anymore, then honestly, I'm not sure why we should be either." Michael Torres from Nexus Development was even more blunt. "I've been in this industry for 25 years, he told me. I've worked with dozens of vendors, and most of them see us as just another account number. You've always treated us like a partner. That's not something you can just replace with whoever they pull from their staff roster." By noon on Tuesday, I had spoken with all 5 of my major clients, and the message was unanimous. They wanted me to know that their loyalty had been to me personally, not just to the company I worked for. Several of them asked if I was planning to land somewhere else soon because they would be very interested in continuing our business relationship in whatever form that might take. That's when I realized that Samantha had made a catastrophic miscalculation. She had assumed that client relationships were interchangeable, that the value I brought to the company was easily replaceable with someone else who could read from the same scripts and follow the same procedures. She didn't understand that business relationships, particularly in our industry, were built on trust that took years to develop and could be destroyed in an instant. Wednesday morning brought the first wave of formal consequences. I was having breakfast when my phone rang with a call from Patricia Vance. But this time her tone was purely business. "Jennifer, I wanted to let you know that I'm sending a formal letter to Westbrook Dynamics this morning requesting an immediate meeting to discuss the future of our contract. After yesterday's conversation, my team and I spent the evening reviewing our agreement, and we discovered that there's a clause allowing us to terminate for cause if there are material changes to the service team without our consent." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Patricia, I don't want you to make any decisions that might hurt your business just because of what happened to me. This isn't about loyalty, Jennifer, though I appreciate everything you've done for us over the years. This is about protecting our business interests. We have critical projects launching next quarter, and the institutional knowledge you've built about our operations isn't something that can be transferred in a training session. If Westbrook wants to maintain our partnership, they need to figure out how to get you back involved, whether that's reversing their decision or arranging some kind of consulting agreement." An hour later, David Chen called with similar news. "Jennifer, I'm formally requesting a contract review meeting with Westbrook's senior management. If they can't provide adequate assurance that our project timelines and quality standards will be maintained without you, then SolarTech will need to explore other options. I've already had my team reach out to 3 of your competitors for preliminary discussions." By Thursday, the situation had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Thomas Reed from Grandstone Manufacturing didn't just request a meeting, he sent a formal notice of contract termination, effective in 30 days, unless Westbrook could restore the service team configuration that was in place when the agreement was originally executed. His letter was copied to Westbrook's chief executive officer, their general counsel, and the entire board of directors. Michael Torres took a different approach. Instead of threatening termination, he suspended all current projects, pending a comprehensive review of service capabilities and personnel changes. This effectively froze over $2 million in active contracts until Westbrook could provide guarantees about project continuity. The most devastating blow came from Patricia Vance on Friday. She didn't just threaten to leave, she actually did it. Her termination letter was short and professional. Due to material changes in account management personnel without client consultation, Emerald Marketing is exercising its right to terminate this agreement, effective immediately. We will be transitioning our business to a vendor who can provide the level of personalized service and institutional knowledge that our projects require. That same day, I received a call from someone I hadn't expected to hear from, Robert Harrison, my former boss who had retired 3 years earlier. "Jennifer," he said, his voice a familiar, comforting rumble. "I hope you don't mind, but Patricia Vance called me this morning. She wanted my perspective on this situation at Westbrook. And she also wanted to know if I had any recommendations for alternative vendors." He paused for a moment before continuing. "I told her that the best vendor I could recommend was you, if you were interested in starting your own consulting practice." The idea hadn't occurred to me before, but as Robert explained it, the concept made perfect sense. You have the relationships, you have the expertise, and you have the trust. All you need is the business structure. Patricia indicated that if I were to start my own firm, Emerald Marketing would be very interested in becoming my first client. By the end of that week, I had received similar inquiries from 3 other former clients. What had started as a termination was rapidly becoming the foundation for something entirely new. Monday morning of the following week, I decided to drive past the Westbrook Dynamics building on my way to meet with a business attorney. I wasn't being vindictive, I genuinely wanted to see how the company was handling the crisis that had been building over the past week. What I saw in the parking lot told me everything I needed to know. Samantha's car was there at 7:30 in the morning, along with vehicles belonging to 3 members of the senior management team. Emergency meetings were clearly in session. Later that day, my former colleague David called me with an update that was both shocking and completely predictable. "Jennifer, you need to know what happened this morning. Samantha called an all-hands meeting at 8 a.m., and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Apparently, the executive team spent the entire weekend in crisis management mode." According to David, the scope of the client relations disaster was even worse than I had realized. In addition to the 3 major accounts that had already terminated or suspended their contracts, 2 other significant clients had requested meetings to reevaluate their vendor relationships. The company was facing the potential loss of nearly 60% of their major account revenue, all within a span of 2 weeks. "The best part," David continued, "was when Samantha tried to blame the situation on your unprofessional relationship boundaries with clients. She actually suggested that you had somehow manipulated these companies into retaliating against Westbrook." The executive team didn't buy it for a second. Chief Executive Officer William Bradford had apparently asked some very pointed questions about how the department head could have been unaware of the extent to which major client relationships were tied to individual personnel. When Samantha couldn't provide satisfactory answers, he asked for her resignation, effective immediately. "Jennifer," David said, "Bradford specifically asked me to get your contact information. He wants to schedule a meeting to discuss options for bringing you back, possibly with a significant promotion and salary increase." I thanked David for the information, but I had to smile at the irony. 2 weeks ago, Samantha had been so confident that I was expendable. Now, the entire executive team was scrambling to undo the damage her decision had caused. But the truth was, it was too late for Westbrook Dynamics. Not because I was vindictive, but because the business landscape had already shifted. That afternoon, I met with Patricia Vance and Michael Torres to finalize the terms of my new consulting firm, Callaway Client Relations. Patricia had agreed to provide startup capital in exchange for guaranteed priority service, and Michael had offered to serve as a reference for other potential clients. Within 3 days, I had signed agreements with 4 former Westbrook clients, with 2 more companies expressing serious interest. The real validation came on Thursday when I received a call from David Chin. "Jennifer," he said, "I wanted you to know that SolarTech has decided to terminate our contract with Westbrook, effective next month. But more importantly, I wanted to ask if you'd be interested in a very different kind of business arrangement." What David proposed was beyond anything I had imagined. SolarTech was expanding their operations and needed someone to manage relationships with multiple vendor partners. Instead of just hiring me as a consultant, they wanted to bring me on as their vice president of vendor relations, with a salary that was nearly double what I had been making at Westbrook. "The position is yours if you want it," David said, "but I wanted to run it by you first because I know you've got your own consulting firm getting started." For the first time since this whole ordeal began, I found myself facing a choice between two excellent options, rather than scrambling to recover from someone else's poor decision. On Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Samantha had gleefully announced my termination, I made my decision. I called David Chen and accepted the position at SolarTech Industries, with one condition: I wanted to maintain my consulting firm for select clients on weekends and evenings. He agreed immediately, understanding that my outside relationships would only strengthen my ability to serve SolarTech's vendor management needs. The news spread quickly through Charlotte's business community. By Thursday, I had received congratulatory calls from 6 different industry contacts, including 2 executives from companies that had never worked with Westbrook Dynamics. Word was getting out that the clients hadn't just left Westbrook, they had followed me to something better. Friday afternoon brought the most satisfying moment of this entire experience. William Bradford from Westbrook Dynamics called me personally to make one final attempt at bringing me back. His offer was generous: department head position, 40% salary increase, guaranteed autonomy, and a formal apology from the board of directors. But it was too late. "Mr. Bradford," I told him, "I appreciate the offer, but I've already accepted a position that offers me both financial growth and professional respect. More importantly, I've learned that my value isn't dependent on any single company's recognition of it." The conversation was cordial but brief. There was no point in dwelling on what might have been when the future was already so clearly mapped out ahead of me. That weekend, I received the final piece of news that completed this entire saga. David from my old department called to let me know that Westbrook Dynamics had announced they were closing the Charlotte office and consolidating operations with their facility in Atlanta. The loss of major clients had made the local operation financially unsustainable. "Jennifer," he said, his voice a mix of awe and amusement, "I hope you know that everyone here understands what really happened. Samantha destroyed in 2 weeks what it took you 14 years to build." I felt no satisfaction in Westbrook's downfall, only a quiet sense of vindication that my contributions had been valuable, even if one person had been too blind to see it. 6 months later, I was settling into my new office at SolarTech Industries, looking out at the Charlotte skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. My title was Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, and my responsibilities had grown far beyond what I had originally been hired to do. David Chen had been right when he predicted that my relationship-building skills would be valuable in multiple areas of their business. Callaway client relations had also flourished beyond my expectations. What started as a way to maintain relationships with 4 former clients had expanded into a boutique consulting firm specializing in B2B relationship management. I was working with 12 companies now and had turned down 6 others because I didn't want to compromise the quality of service by growing too quickly. The most unexpected development came when Patricia Vance recommended me to speak at the Regional Business Leadership Conference about the importance of personal relationships in professional settings. The presentation went so well that I was invited to write an article for Business Excellence magazine about the hidden value of authentic client relationships. 2 weeks ago, I received a LinkedIn message from someone I hadn't heard from in months, Samantha Kerr. She had found a new position with a smaller firm in Raleigh and wanted to congratulate me on my success and clear the air about any past misunderstandings. I read the message twice before deleting it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, weren't worth rebuilding. Yesterday, I had lunch with Robert Harrison, my former boss who had first encouraged me to value relationship building over transaction-focused thinking. "Jennifer," he said over dessert, "I've been watching your career progression with great pride. You've proven that doing the right thing, even when it's not appreciated, eventually leads to recognition from people who matter." Looking back on everything that happened, I realized he was absolutely right. As I sat in my new office, watching the bustling activity of a company that valued what I brought to the table, I understood that Samantha's cruel grin that Monday morning had actually been a gift in disguise. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't plotting someone's downfall, it's building something so successful that their betrayal becomes irrelevant to your happiness.